So yeah, I drove it about 20 miles last night. I went down to the car wash as the first thing that I did because there was like probably a good millimeter or so of dust buildup on this thing just from working on that side kick. I was doing a lot of grinding, cutting, and welding and all kinds of crap, and then, you know, just normal dust buildup. But yeah, so I took it to the car wash. I went to a town that was nearby, got some good fuel in it, and I drove about 20 miles last night, and I had no problems really whatsoever other than I forgot to put one of those little C-clips in the intercooler pipe that hooks up from the charge pipe to the intercooler itself. I forgot to put that little clip in, so that little hose there popped off. Other than that, I did have one other thing happen, which it's a Volkswagen, so my check engine light came on, but it's actually for a reason that's fairly easily fixable. It was for the catalyst emission system's low efficiency, and basically all that means is it's for the downstream O2 sensor, and it thinks that it's getting low efficiency readings off the catalytic converter. So basically just means it thinks the catalytic converter is not working efficiently. And the reason why is because I got a catless downpipe, so there is no cat, so of course it's going to think it's got low efficiency. But I completely forgot about it. I bought this little angle deal here that basically just gets the O2 sensor out of the exhaust stream so that it thinks it's working properly. So I need to jack it up and put this thing in there, and that should take care of that check engine light for the catalyst emission system low efficiency code. And there is some more things that I want to do to the car. This headlight over here, I mean, you can probably tell by looking at that one. That one's like brand new looking almost, and this one has kind of gotten foggy and things of that sort. So I'm going to buff and polish this headlight cover over here. I'm going to, like I said, jack it up and then put that little O2 sensor adapter in there. That way it's out of the exhaust stream and gets rid of that code. And then also, I have not touched the interior yet, but look at this freaking dust buildup. That's basically what the exterior looked like before I went to the car wash. So I need to do a good detail on the inside of the car. Alrighty, so now I'm going to be doing the refinish on this headlight here. You can see this one's nice and bright, clean, and clear. This one's pretty faded compared to that one. So what I'm going to be doing is I'll be using my DA sander that hooks up to the compressor there. And essentially all you need is, there's a cutting pad, a polishing pad, and a finishing pad. And you can use this also for like refinishing your paint, getting all the swirl marks and things of that sort out of it. But what you want to use with this is some kind of cutting compound to start out with. This is the highest grit cutting compound for the Meguiar's mirror glaze stuff, whatever. But it's basically like a gritty compound, or whatever you want to call it, that you put on the foam pad or on the headlight, and then you basically just sand / polish it off. And then you just step down slowly to a finer grit until you get to the finishing compound, which would be this, which has less grit than the others. So it's just a step-by-step process to get rid of like swirl marks if you're doing it on paint, or this nasty fading on the headlight. So I'm going to go ahead and get into it, get my compressor charged up, and start restoring this headlight. Alrighty guys, so I'm working on the GTI again today. I drove it about 100 some odd miles, maybe 120, 30, maybe even 150 already. I just wanted to get through the first break-in oil change as quick as I could. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. I also did have a tiny little coolant leak. So I'm going to try to take care of that. All I've got to do to take care of that is get this battery cover, the battery and the battery tray out of here, and then hopefully just tighten up one of the hose clamps on the coolant housing, or for a hose that's on the coolant housing. And then like I said, I'm also going to be doing the oil change on this thing. So I'm just going to go ahead and get into it. Okay, so I think that little bitty coolant leak is hopefully taken care of. Also, I had a tiny boost leak, and I think it's just because I didn't have a clip all the way clipped in on one of the intercooler hoses. And sure enough, I pushed in on one of the intercooler hoses and it popped right back in the spot, and I put that little clip in the little retaining pieces that hold that clip in, however you would say that, whatever. But yeah, so I'll let the car warm up for a little bit so that the oil is a little bit more viscous and will flow out of the block a little bit easier. So that's that. And then I also forgot I bought an accessory belt to replace the one that's on there. The belt that's on there is a little bit got like a little bit of chafing, I guess you could say. So I just wanted to go ahead and replace that, and then I've got to take this tire off so that I can get that fender liner in there, which is, yeah, still over there. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and drain this oil out, and while I do that, I'm gonna take this tire off so that I can put that liner back in. Alright, so the oil's draining now, and here is what it looks like. You can see there's some metal, really fine metal shavings in here. And then there's actually a little bit bigger metal shavings down there on the bottom. Really nothing horrible. This is kind of expected whenever you do a rebuild, so I'm pretty happy with that. Like I said, I'm just going to let this drain out some more. And there's a few tiny little oil leaks that I need to button up, it seems like. There is a tiny leak at the housing for the turbo muffler where it goes to this charge pipe here. So I'm going to snug those bolts up a little bit, and then also on the return line for the oil, there's a tiny bit that was dripping out of there. So I'm going to tighten up those bolts just a little bit. I'm going to clean this out real good and get that inner fender liner in there. And yeah, I'm going to get back to it. So it's actually the next day here. My phone died during that last time lapse when I was, tightening up the oil return line for the turbo. There was just a tiny little leak coming from that, and then also from the turbo muffler, which is part of the discharge portion of the turbo. And I fixed that little bit of coolant leak there. I just needed to snug up that clamp a little bit more. Got the oil change done, put that inner fender liner in there, and change the accessory belt as well. So I apologize. I think my memory was full on my phone and just wouldn't keep that anymore. It just wouldn't record any more video once my storage was full. So hopefully that's all taken care of now. All that stuff that I did though, all good to go. But yeah, I'm going to be changing out the gasket that goes from the turbo housing to the downpipe, because I've got a tiny little bitty exhaust leak coming from that. And I believe it's because I reused my old Cometic head, or I keep trying to say head gasket, but I reused my old Cometic style downpipe gasket, and just because I didn't want to use this style of gasket. I really dislike this style of gasket just because every time you use this style of gasket, it leaves behind all this nastiness, and I just don't like them. You have to clean up after them every time, and it's annoying. But at any rate, yeah, so that's what I'm going to be doing today. I'm going to put that gasket on the downpipe, and then also while I have the downpipe unbolted from the turbo housing, I'm going to try to get those that exhaust hanger slash bracket, whatever you want to call it, to line up with the holes that are on the I'm just going to call it the cross member there, the little cross member. That's what I'm just going to call it that, but it just supports the power steering rack and all of that good stuff. There's 2 bolts that hold that bracket in there, and you know, right now the bracket is literally, you know, millimeters, maybe a centimeter away from that cross member, and you know, if I'm backing up or just started it on a cold start, it'll rattle up against it and just make a horrible noise, and I'm tired of hearing that. So I'm going to try to fix that as well, and then I need to tighten up the the band clamp that's on the very back of the mid pipe section of the downpipe that meets up with the muffler section of the exhaust. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. But yeah, let's get into it. Alright, so I took out this little bracket down there that I believe is pretty much just like a support in case the exhaust falls off. So I took that off, and the motor is still pretty hot, so it needs to cool down for a little while. But I'm actually kind of curious how this how this thing will sound if it doesn't have a muffler on it. So I'm gonna put this intake back on real quick, and we're gonna see what it sounds like without a muffler. Alright, the intake is now back up, and there's probably gonna be a little bit of rattling because this is kind of resting on that little bracket or brace right there, whatever you want to call that. So I mean, aside from that, we'll get a little bit of an idea of what it's gonna sound like. Where should I sit my camera? Set it back here, I suppose, maybe.